In the 5 years I spent married to Lisa, I believed we had built a bond strong enough to withstand any storm. But as the cracks in our relationship began to widen, I realized the foundation of our marriage was riddled with insecurities, mistrust, and unspoken resentment, mostly stemming from her. It started small. Lisa would question my late nights at work, accusing me of prioritizing my job over her. She'd ask why I received texts from my colleagues, particularly if they were female. At first, I dismissed her concerns as a natural part of adjusting to marriage. I'd reassure her, telling her where I was, who I was with, and even sharing my phone passcode to ease her mind. But the more I gave, the more she demanded. The arguments began escalating about 2 years into our marriage. One evening, I arrived home late after a corporate dinner. Lisa was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed and her face flushed with anger. "You couldn't even text me to say you'd be late," she snapped. I tried to explain that I had informed her earlier that day, but she wasn't having it. "You have time to talk to your coworkers, but not your wife? Do you even care about this marriage anymore?" It was exhausting. No matter what I said, she twisted my words into further evidence of my supposed neglect. It wasn't until I suggested couples therapy that I saw the faintest glimmer of hope. Reluctantly, she agreed. Therapy started out promising. The counselor encouraged us to communicate openly and address our individual insecurities. Lisa admitted she struggled with trust due to her parents' divorce, which was caused by infidelity. I sympathized and worked even harder to prove my loyalty. I reduced overtime, cut back on social outings, and gave her constant updates on my whereabouts. For a while, things seemed to improve. But the peace was short-lived. Lisa's jealousy morphed into control. She began monitoring my every move. She'd ask for proof of where I was, and if I didn't respond immediately, she'd accuse me of hiding something. One day, she showed up unannounced at my office, claiming she had a feeling I was doing something behind her back. I was humiliated in front of my colleagues. "Lisa, this has to stop," I said that night. "I can't keep living like this. You're not giving me any space to breathe. You're the one making me feel like this," she countered. "If you weren't so secretive, I wouldn't have to check up on you." I felt trapped. No matter how much I tried to appease her, it was never enough. The breaking point came when Lisa accused me of having an affair with my coworker, Sarah. Sarah and I worked on several projects together, and while we were friendly, there was nothing romantic between us. Lisa didn't believe me. She began stalking Sarah's social media and even confronted her at a work event, causing a scene that left me mortified. The following week, I came home to find Lisa had gone through my laptop, phone, and even my personal journal. "I'm just looking for the truth," she said unapologetically. I was livid. "You've crossed every boundary. How can you expect me to stay in a marriage where I'm treated like a criminal?" A response chilled me to the core. "If you didn't have anything to hide, you wouldn't be so defensive." I knew then that this wasn't just about her insecurities. It was about control. She didn't want a partner, she wanted a prisoner. For months, I considered leaving. But every time I tried, Lisa would break down, apologizing and promising to change. "I'll be better," she'd say through tears. "I just love you so much, and I'm scared of losing you." Her words always tugged at my heart. I wanted to believe her, to think that we could fix what was broken. But each time I stayed, the cycle repeated. Her apologies turned into accusations, her promises into demands. It was a never-ending loop of emotional turmoil. One day, After yet another argument over a baseless accusation, I decided to confide in my best friend, Mark. He had known me for years and had seen the toll this marriage was taking on me. Over coffee, I laid everything out, from Lisa's jealousy to her controlling behavior. "Man, this isn't healthy," Mark said bluntly. "You're bending over backward to make her happy, but it's never enough. You've lost yourself in this marriage." His words hit me hard. I realized he was right. I had given up so much of myself to keep Lisa's insecurities at bay, but in doing so, I had sacrificed my own happiness, my peace of mind, and my sense of self. That night, I made a decision. I told Lisa we needed to separate. At first, she laughed, thinking I wasn't serious. But when she saw the determination in my eyes, her demeanor changed. "You can't leave me," she said, her voice trembling. "We've been through so much together. I can't live without you." "Lisa, I've tried," I said, my voice breaking. "I've given everything I have to this marriage, but it's not enough. I can't keep living like this. It's killing me." The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Lisa begged, pleaded, and even threatened to harm herself if I left. I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, but I knew staying would only prolong the pain for both of us. I reached out to her family, asking them to support her through this transition. Thankfully, they stepped in, ensuring she had the help she needed. As I packed my belongings and moved into a small apartment across town, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I mourned the dreams we had built together, the love I had once felt for her. But I also felt a newfound sense of freedom, a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. In the months that followed, I focused on healing. I started therapy to address the emotional scars left by my marriage. I reconnected with old friends, pursued hobbies I had abandoned, and even took a solo trip to clear my mind. Slowly but surely, I began to rediscover who I was outside of being Lisa's husband. Lisa, on the other hand, struggled to move on. She reached out multiple times, asking for another chance. "I've changed," she'd say. "I've been working on myself. Please, just give us one more try." But I knew better. While I hoped she was genuinely working on her issues, I couldn't risk falling back into the same toxic cycle. I wished her well and made it clear that our chapter was closed. Looking back, my marriage to Lisa taught me a lot about love, trust, and the importance of setting boundaries. I learned that a relationship should be a partnership, not a battleground. It should uplift you, not drain you. And above all, it should be built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Today, I'm in a much better place. I've met someone who values me for who I am, someone who trusts me and encourages me to be my best self. It's a stark contrast to what I endured with Lisa, and it's a reminder of how far I've come. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from what's breaking you. It's not easy, and it's not without pain, but in the end, it's worth it. Because you deserve a love that sets you free, not one that keeps you chained. Her words tugged at my heartstrings. I'd always been a fixer, someone who believed that with enough effort, any problem could be solved. So, I stayed. I stayed through her mood swings, her baseless accusations, and her relentless need for control. I stayed because I thought love was about endurance, about weathering the storm. Little did I know, the storm was one of her own making, and I was merely a passenger. Then came the ultimate betrayal. One evening, I was scrolling through my social media feed when I noticed a peculiar comment on one of Lisa's photos. It was from a man named Mark, and it read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. My hands trembled as I reread the comment, hoping I'd misunderstood. But the words were clear, and their implications clearer. When I confronted Lisa, she denied everything at first. Her eyes flashed with indignation, and she called me paranoid. But as I pressed her, her story began to unravel. The confident facade crumbled, revealing cracks in her lies. "Fine," she finally admitted, her voice cold and defiant. "I've been seeing Mark for a few weeks. But it's only because you made me feel so unloved. You pushed me into his arms." Her words felt like a slap in the face. After years of bending over backward to reassure her, sacrificing my own happiness to make her feel secure, she had the audacity to blame me for her infidelity. I stared at her, struggling to process the depths of her betrayal. "You cheated because you wanted to," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Don't you dare put this on me." The next few days were a blur. Lisa's pleas for forgiveness filled the air, her apologies hollow and insincere. She claimed the affair was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But I couldn't unsee the betrayal. It wasn't just about the act of cheating, it was about the hypocrisy. She'd spent years accusing me of infidelity, yet she was the one who strayed. I moved out that weekend and filed for divorce. Lisa didn't take it well. She bombarded me with calls and texts, alternating between apologies and accusations. Her desperation escalated. She showed up at my new apartment uninvited, pleading with me to come back. Each encounter only solidified my resolve. For the first time in years, I chose myself. The divorce was messy. Lisa tried to paint me as the villain, claiming I had emotionally abandoned her. But the evidence of her affair was undeniable. Text messages, social media comments, and even a few candid photos of her with Mark told the story more clearly than words ever could. In the end, the court granted me a clean break, and I walked away with my dignity intact. The months that followed were a journey of healing. I started therapy on my own, determined to unpack the trauma of my marriage. For years, I had been so focused on fixing Lisa that I'd neglected my own needs. I'd allowed her insecurities to dictate my life, and in doing so, I'd lost sight of who I was. Therapy was a revelation. My therapist helped me see patterns I hadn't noticed before. I learned how my upbringing had shaped my tendency to prioritize others' happiness over my own. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from, pursued hobbies I'd abandoned, and even took a solo trip to the mountains to clear my mind. For the first time in years, I felt free. Then, one day, I received a message from Lisa. It had been nearly a year since our divorce, and I hadn't heard from her in months. The message was long and rambling, filled with apologies and regret. She admitted she had been wrong and that she was working on herself. "I know I messed up," she wrote, "but I still love you. Is there any chance we could start over?" Reading her words, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe she had changed. But another part of me knew better. I had spent too long sacrificing my happiness for someone who didn't value it. I couldn't go back to that life. I replied with a simple message. "I'm glad you're working on yourself, but I've moved on, and I hope you can too." As I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I truly let go of the past. Lisa was a chapter in my life, one filled with pain and lessons. But it was a chapter I was ready to close. Today, I'm in a much better place. I've learned the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing my own well-being. I've embraced the idea that love shouldn't come at the cost of self-respect. And while I may still carry the scars of my marriage, they serve as a reminder of my strength and resilience. One of the most significant changes in my life has been rediscovering joy. I joined a local hiking group, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. The crisp mountain air and the camaraderie of the group became a source of solace and inspiration. Each hike felt like a step toward reclaiming my identity. I also reconnected with old friends, people who had seen me at my best and my worst. They welcomed me back with open arms, reminding me of the person I used to be before I lost myself in my marriage. Their support was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone in my journey. One day, during a group hike, I met someone. Her name was Emily, and she had a warmth about her that was both comforting and invigorating. We started talking, sharing stories about our lives and our struggles. Emily had her own tale of heartbreak, and our shared experiences created an instant bond. For the first time since my divorce, I felt a spark of hope for the future. Emily and I took things slow. We both understood the importance of healing before diving into something new. But as the months passed, our connection deepened. She showed me what it meant to be in a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. With Emily, I didn't feel the need to fix anything. She accepted me as I was, and I did the same for her. Looking back, my time with Lisa feels like a distant memory, a cautionary tale that shaped the person I am today. While I wouldn't wish the pain of that experience on anyone, I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me. It taught me the value of self-respect, the importance of boundaries, and the necessity of choosing happiness. Life isn't perfect, and it never will be, but it's the imperfections that make it beautiful. I've learned to embrace the highs and the lows, to find gratitude in the small moments of joy. And most importantly, I've learned that I am enough just as I am. As I write this, Emily and I are planning our next hiking adventure. The trail we've chosen is challenging, but we're excited to tackle it together. It's a fitting metaphor for life. No matter how steep the climb, having the right person by your side makes all the difference. So, to anyone reading this who might be going through a similar struggle, know this: you are not alone. Your happiness matters, and it's never too late to reclaim it. The road to healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. And when you finally reach the other side, you'll realize just how strong you truly are.